Hello, Hateless Gaming here, bringing you another video, and this one is special because I responded to Brisc Rubal's post, and today we actually have him here to talk about it. So,
Hi,
first,
Hateless. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
How's
Today's
your
been,
cat doing? I hope he's doing well.
she is being cat.
Nice.
um, but let's start this conversation with why is your opinion in this matters so much?
Well, I don't know if it does or not. We'll find out, right? But the reason why I wrote the post and why I pushed this as hard as I am is on the Council of Stellar Management. I'm one of the 10 elected members of the CSM. Our role is to be a player feedback group for CCP. We're elected by the players at large. And this is the third term that I've served on the CSM. I served on CSM 13 and 15 and now 16. And we work with the developers on a daily basis on things like this: but game balance, monetization, new ideas for features, new plans, this type of stuff. This is what we do. We work with CCP. Our job is to gauge player sentiment and to talk to folks about what we think would be good for the game, what is bad for the game, what we'd like to see changed. And we serve as a focus group for the company when they want to put out something new and find out what the average player is going to think about it. So over the years, there have been 16 CSMs going back to 2007. And when I saw what happened here, uh, the first thing I thought was, this is a big deal. And it was a big deal because it was something that had not happened before, or at least not happened in the way that this is happening now. And I talked to a lot of players. I got a lot of feedback before we went public on this. And it was almost, I would say, at least when I was talking to folks, it was almost 100% anti. They didn't like it. So I said, okay, we need to stand up and do something because we need to get ahead of this to make sure the players know that their representatives are letting CCP know that they don't like this. And in my day job, one of the things that I find is when you build coalitions and you do an open letter like this, it can be pretty powerful if it's led off by people that the recipient knows, trusts, has worked with, and that type of thing. So it started out as me writing the letter, then asking a couple of my friends that are on the current CSM if they wanted to join, then asking the entire CSM if they wanted to join, and then reaching out to all the alumni. And the result was this list that now has, I believe, 29 people
Yeah,
that have
you
served on the
you
CSM and won.
rapidly got signatures for that. When I initially read it, there was only like five or six, and now you got something like 20, which is pretty awesome. So for the new player that's coming in and doesn't really understand why this is an issue, why buying a ship is an issue, and I think you can explain this better than I can, and I tried to explain it in my last video. Why is this so devastating or so critical to keeping the game as kind of a free to play, you can put money in if you want to model? Why is it so critical to the industry and market of EVE Online?
So, one of the benefits that you have playing Eve, and one of the things that makes Eve a unique game as opposed to a World of Warcraft or any of the other big MMOs, is we have an entirely player run economy. The economy is driven by players. The ISK that's is generated in the game. We don't have vendors. You don't go sell all your junk to an NPC to make 5 gold back when you're out farming. You don't have when you're building armor, things like that. You can't just buy a purple off of some kind of a vendor, or grind out some kind of points that'll let you buy a good module. Most of the stuff in the game, the vast majority of the stuff in the game, especially the ships, are player built. They come from blueprints. They come from mining materials and minerals, things like that the players have had to go out and gather. The industry types go ahead and they build these ships and they sell them. And that's a unique aspect of the game. It's as unique as the single shard aspect of the game, where we're all on one big server. It's as unique as the idea that things like scamming and ganking and stuff like that are illegal. It's what makes Eve Eve. And anytime the company steps in with a new monetization scheme that has the potential to disrupt something that is so core to the game, like the player run economy, it sends up a lot of alarm bells with a lot of people because they don't want to turn the game away from what made it good, what made people interested in it, what makes people happy. And for me, the last thing I want to see is CCP as the company out there competing against players in the game building the same stuff, because the company doesn't have any of the rules that we have to live by. They can poof a ship out of midair. They can poof items and objects out of midair. Nobody has to go and work for them. Nobody has to go and rat to get the module, or or mine to get the minerals, or go out to ore space to pick up a blueprint and bring it back to Jeter, bring it back wherever they live to invent it, and then put it together. And the result there is, if it happens once and we don't say anything, and it already has happened, that they already have sold destroyer packs to new players, and we didn't complain very much about it at the time because you can get
It's so
destroyers through the
small,
new player
and
experience. It's
it's in
small.
the
It's
NPE.
small.
Yeah,
Right. It's an NPE thing, and it's small. A retriever is not a new player ship. This is a mining barge. It takes a little bit of time and effort to get into one of these things. I think if they had sold a venture, nobody would care. But that they're selling a retriever, which is a pretty significant
they're
step
about
up.
50 million isk, and they mine
Right.
about 3 times as fast.
Correct.
So that's the
So
thing.
this was just it was a big step forward, and it crossed a.
Oh, we're
I've been
having
telling CCP for a
connect-
long time not to
was
do.
it?
Don't sell fitted ships. Don't sell stuff that competes with things that are in the game already. You want to sell cosmetics? We love it. Please sell us more cosmetics.
Cat ears for
You want to
$10,000. Let's go.
Right, exactly. Like, I mean, that's the like that's that. I mean, you're 100% right. Like I always say, if you guys are trying to juice the numbers and you need to make a quick buck, sell some cat ears. I guarantee you, it doesn't matter what the price is, you will make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But they can do more skins. They can do all kinds of different stuff on monetization, cosmetic wise, that people will pay for and be glad to pay for it.
I mean, Fortnite's a fantastic example of that. That game is purely based on skins. That's where all
Right.
their money comes from.
Exactly. And that's why, when we see this type of stuff, and I've been on the CSM 3 terms. We had people on this letter that are 6-term CSMs, the two longest serving CSM members of all time, Steve Renukin and Nominate, both were on this letter. We have had sit down discussions with CCP on what is okay for monetization and what is not over the years. And we've been pretty consistent that things like selling stuff that players make in the game is not okay. And my whole take on this was, if we don't make a big enough snake now, then the result is going to be likely that we're going to see more of this. So why stop with a retriever? Well, why can't I sell a caracal? Why can't I sell, a Megathron? Why can't I
Mhm.
sell a Naglfar? Why can't I sell an Avatar?
Yeah.
People are going to buy them. Why
It's
can't I
where
sell anything? And
we're
that's
sitting
too
on
far.
a slippery slope, and normally the slippery slope argument in itself is a fallacy. But however, in this case, it has been backed up by them historically pushing that envelope and moving forward. And so we can actually use that argument in this case because historically they've done it, and it makes sense to
Correct.
do so. And then we'll go ahead and kind of shift the focus to kind of the discussion where I made that video, and I know you watched it, and you watched it kind of in a hurry because you're a busy man.
I was a little busy, but I did watch.
You came up with my argument is that, and I'm playing devil's advocate. I believe that we should not have ships for sale, just like you do. However, in the sense of driving new players to try new things, it's a good idea to have packs and things that encourage players to do new things, but having a player built asset is not okay. And I'm the line gets blurred when it's a very small portion of the pack, and it doesn't make sense to buy the pack for the ship. And in this case, it's about $1 of the $25 is where the value of that ship is. So nobody's going to repurchase this to buy another retriever. But
And
like you
that's what I find.
said,
That's what I get frustrated with is they didn't need to put the retriever in here at all. They could have simply
added 10
provided
more
a
plex.
fitting. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Put another 100 plex in, and provide a community fitting for the retriever that lets the player do what they got. Basically, they're learning a skill. One of the things you need to learn how to do in Eve is, all right, you have this Plex. You're not going to use it for your account for your 30-day Omega. So what do you do with it? Well, figure out how to sell it and get the ISK for it. And then you can use that to buy whatever you want. And in that situation, when you're selling Plex, the reason why Plex is different from a selling a fitted ship, and why, I mean, if some people in the comments were like, well, how is this any different than selling Plex? The ISK that is generated when you sell Plex on the market in JITA or in Perimeter or wherever you're selling it, the player that is paying for that is paying an ISK that he made in the game. It's not free money. It didn't just get poofed into the air by CCP. He had to do something. He or she had to do something to get that Plex, to get that ISK to buy the Plex with. So there is player interaction. It is part of the player economy. That's why we do that. That's why I'm always going to say, if you want to help the new player, either give them the ship for free as part of the NPE to encourage them to run the NPE and learn what they're doing, how they're supposed to use it, or provide them, thanks now that we have the skill plans and the ability to provide these community fits and stuff, give them the skill plan and give them the fitting. And if you want to even give them the SP, that's less egregious in my mind, because they've already been selling SP for a while, even though I really don't particularly care for that aspect of it either.
The SP discussion is another can of worms. We'll kind of
Yes, it
keep that
is.
one sealed over
And it's
there
one of
for
those ones
now.
where that ship's already sailed, so I kind of like don't want to argue about it, right?
So your immediate response to watching that video is you uh, showed me the glass parable or the glazer's fallacy, which is when you destroy goods. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I glanced over the wiki with it, but my
Mhm.
understanding is that when you destroy goods, and the idea is that that creates commerce. And I'm going to challenge you a little here because you're a goon, and goons have done this in the past. They're not currently doing it, but they do burn Jita, and
Mhm.
they sponsored the initial what was it with the Hulk again way back in the day,
Right.
which is kind of the same thing. You put ships, or you put fuel into the fire, and it generates momentum in the economy. And the glass parable is that, and that doesn't work in the real world. When you destroy a glass to make work, that doesn't work because that work could have been relocated to somewhere else that's beneficial. But if
Right.
somebody gets a retriever, loses the retriever, because let's be honest, that fits pretty bad. They're going to lose the retriever, or they're just going to dock it and it's going to sit in the station, or they'll sell it. But a lot of people will lose it, and a lot of people will be inspired to try a coveter or a procure, as well as that retriever, because they got the skills to try the ship now, and they're also provided with Plex to incentivize them to drive and try different things. And the fit is incomplete, inspiring people to also try new things. What do you? And I'm playing devil's advocate. I do believe that selling ships is not okay, but in this case, it's not as bad. But at the same time, we can't let it go any further than it is.
Well,
Um,
and so here's what I'd say to that. First, the fact that the fitting is not good is problematic in and of itself, because the new player is not going to understand that. He's not going to know, well, why don't I have rigs on this thing? I mean, I got this from the company. This is their fit. This should be right. And that's why I got a little annoyed with you yesterday when you were talking. Well, it's not a fit. It's not fully fitted. It's fitted. There are some fittings
mhm.
on here, but you got to finish it out. But I don't know if the new player is going to understand that much
So
to really get it right.
I
So,
personally bought it, and on a brand new character that I had already Omega, and he had no skills trained because I'm using him as a scout for incursions, and that's a whole nother story. But I bought it to see exactly what it was and what was contained in it, and exactly what the player's experience would be if they bought this not knowing what was going on. And I wanted to know that, so I grabbed the ship, I undocked it the way it was, and I hopped in a belt, and I was mining, and it mined okay. And I did a return on investment calculation and all that. I figured out like what is happening here. And it does it makes it really easy for a player to, buy this and immediately be able to hop into the activity of mining with very little blockage. It just instantly you're doing the activity. How do you feel about that?
I think again, I would rather
It be
that
Plex
it
and then they buy the ship?
that it be Plex and not be just a ship. I mean, I understand, yeah, it's very quick and the new player can hop out there and get in and go out in the belt, and that's fine. But there are other skills that they need to learn that will benefit them in greater stead down the road than simply I know I can pay $25, buy a ship, and jump into a mining belt and start going. And I think
Yeah,
the other concern with the fact that the ship is not fitted as well as it could be, it's not as tanky as it should be. I mean, just throw a couple bulkheads on there and you're probably in better shape, and you're less likely to get ganked. And if you do get ganked, you're probably not going to die as fast. But the whole point is, imagine you're the new player. You spend $25 on this pack, and you go out in space, and like 15 minutes later, you're dead.
you're not going to
And
be a
all that
happy
work, then
camper.
you're like, you're not going to be happy about it. And
Yeah.
that's always one of the concerns that I have when we throw new players into the whole let's buy a bunch of stuff, credit card warrior kind of behavior. Let's buy a bunch of stuff. I'm going to buy a bunch of Plex. I'm going to buy a big ship. I'm going to officer fit it because that, I mean, in every other game, if I have something with a bunch of purples on it, it's going to be better. And then I take it out and it's a flying kill mail. And all of a sudden I'm down and I just spent 20, $30 on this
That's a really
game for
poor experience.
15
Yeah.
minutes worth of time for work. So I don't want, I worry that that's going to result in people quitting, like
Mhm.
getting feeling like they got ripped off and walking away because they didn't understand the dynamics of what happened because of the way that this was sold to them as a package.
So, how would you feel if they continued packs that were at this level and they didn't go any further ever? Obviously, if they do get to continue packs like this, they're going to make a battleship one or something that's more valuable or a battle cruiser or something. I'm sure it'll happen. A Praxis pack. I'm sure Praxis packs are coming. Um, how would you feel if that it if it didn't go any further and it stayed here and your voice was heard and we were able to put this in the past and just say, hey, you know what? They're making little packs like this that get players trying new activities. How would you feel if that was the end result of this discussion?
I would feel pretty bad, to be honest. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. I think first, I don't trust the company when they say they'll never do it again. Because,
They've
first of
always
all,
done it
one,
again with,
well,
with skill
it's
points and
not, it's,
stuff.
I mean, to a certain extent, that's true. But I mean, think about it this way: this game is 19 years old. CCP's been around for more than 20 years now. People come, people go. They get new staff, they get new monetization people, they get new developers, they get new designers, they get new creative directors and heads of production, and all kinds of stuff. We've seen a ton of people come and go over the years at the company, and I don't think it's fair for them or anybody else to be held to accountable for stuff that people in the past did and said. And I think right now one of the reasons why the players are in such uh, up in arms about this type of thing is because we've heard these promises made by past CCP folks who are no longer with the company, and now market has changed, games have changed, the player base's willingness to accept monetization has changed, and they want to get in on the action because everybody else is, and they can't do it because we said, or at least they would make the art. We promised we wouldn't do it. So they've not let they just ignored the promises or said, hey, I know we promised you guys we wouldn't do this, but things changed. Sorry. And the result has been a growing cynicism within the player base that they can't trust what CCP says. So even if they were to tell me today, Brisc, you know what, your article was good. We were going to listen to you and the other 29 CSM members that were on here. We promised we're never going to sell another thing. I can't take that to the bank beyond the term of the person that said it to me working at the company. And as soon as
Mhm.
they're gone, it's off. I mean, whatever they have promised, I think is off the table. So I
Mhm.
can't trust that. And the second thing is, I'll be honest, the players are angry. Like whatever benefit that the last patch that came out on Tuesday may have had, adding compression and rolling back surgical strike partially, and putting in the upgrade
It
to
was an
battleships, a
amazing
lot of stuff.
patch,
It
and
was a great patch,
this is a breach of
and it had
trust.
right. It had the potential to finally start bringing some folks back that were upset that had left before from other changes. It would have had the chance to try to get some of these folks that were mad to calm down and say, hey, look, the company's finally doing things that you're asking for, that players are asking for. And all of a sudden, all the goodwill that was built up by them putting this out has been destroyed because they wanted to sell a $25 retriever to people when they didn't have to. And I think the other concern that I have, and I'll be, this is maybe a little more selfish, but as a CSM member, I am constantly told that what's the point of the CSM? Why are you even here? CCP doesn't listen to you. They don't care what you guys say. So why are you even wasting your time? Why don't you just quit? Why don't you all quit? And I've resisted that for the longest time because one, I'm not a quitter, and two, I don't think it does anything. It's not going to send a message. They'll just take the next 10 people from the election, and they'll be the new CSM,
Hmm.
and they'll be out there, selling them the same stuff that we're doing, but they're not making a difference. I really feel like if they do not at least walk this back or otherwise say, hey, this isn't cool. We understand this, and we promise once this sale is over, we won't do it again, or something to just acknowledge that people are mad and that they made a mistake, and that they're going to walk this back somehow. That it's really going to undercut any kind of credibility that the CSM has with the players, and I think it's going to have an impact on who decides to run, because who wants to spend all this extra time working, thinking, talking, writing, with players and with the developers? I mean, we have weekly meetings. We have to take our vacation to go to these summits, even though we haven't had one. I mean, the whole idea that this is somehow something cool with good status, and you get to be a famous Eve player, and you get a free trip to Iceland and stuff. That has
You
not been my
we're
experience at
we're
all.
talking
I
about
haven't
this
had any of
that
it.
being CSM is not a rewarding experience. I was listening
It's
to you
not
talk about that on
fun.
TIS
It's
yesterday.
work. I mean, it,
Hmm.
it is absolutely work. It is work, and I think folks that get elected that think that it's going to be fun and exciting, and it's cool, and now they're
We
important
are
people,
starting to
are
drift
quickly
off a little
disabused by
bit.
that.
Um,
But yeah, we can keep going anyway.
Um, yeah, because we're starting to get a little tight on time. Is there? So I do want to make it clear that I believe very firmly that in-game produced goods should not be traded. There is one comment that's been floating around, not only in my YouTube video, but I saw it in TIS yesterday, and um, I kind of want you to paint the picture on this. What if CCP bought the ships off the market and then sold them to players? What
So I
what is the issue with that? I personally have an issue with that, and I think I responded to the person's comment well, but I would like to hear from you what is the issue with that.
I mean, there are a couple issues with that. I think first of all, how is that going to work? Where are they going to source the ships from? Are they going to pick the cheapest ship in Jita? Are they going to pick the cheapest ship in the game? Uh, how does that end up happening? And if it does happen, I think again that'll be a situation where, for example, we in nullsec are able to, because of our economies of scale, we can sell things like retrievers and stuff well below the Jita price, because we can still make a profit given our economies of scale out here. And that would be unfair to the folks who are trying to compete in high sec in the trade hubs if they grab one from anywhere in the game. I think the second thing is, I think it's going to be gamed, and I think it creates an artificial price for the item. So if you know that CCP is the one buying these retrievers to give out to people in these packs, then the result, I think, two things potentially will happen. One, the market is going to skyrocket because, hey, it's free money. The government's buying.
Yeah, it's
CCP's
like
buying.
like you mentioned earlier, when somebody buys the Plex off of you, they worked for that ISK. It took time and effort to generate the ISK, whereas if they just bought it from players with wisped out of thin air ISK, it would kind of be the same result. It'd be a
And,
stint in the market, but on the other side of the spectrum.
well, and that's so. What I would expect to have, either one of two things will happen. One, either you will see the price steadily increase because you've got this outside of the market player, meaning CCP, coming in with unlimited ISK, buying everything from the market. So why wouldn't you increase your prices, knowing that a regular player doesn't have to buy this? I'm selling this to CCP to give to a regular player. So why would I not charge them, way more? It's the equivalent of, like, in the United States, when the government buys an $800 toilet seat. It's not because that's the price. They can get it, $29.99 down at the Lowe's, but they sell it for $800 because the government will pay it,
Hmm.
and nobody's checking. So I think that's a potential outcome. The other potential outcome is that however, if they were to say we're gonna have to set this is the price that we are willing to pay for these ships, then that becomes the price. Because why would anybody buy a retriever for more than they're selling it to CCP for? It would undercut the market in that way. So I think at the end of the day, it's an outside unnecessary interruption in a player driven economy that just doesn't need to happen. They don't
Hmm.
need to sell these to people. There are other ways that they can provide them to a player, even in a pack like this, that doesn't involve them directly selling anything. And I think that's the route they need to go. But I think right now they're too busy in damage control mode
Hmm.
to really even think about walking this back. And that's what's frustrating. Like today has been very frustrating to me because
Hmm.
we've had a lot of conversations internally with CCP, and I'm getting the feeling that they're not going to walk this back, and that really it's really disappointing in a lot of ways.
Okay, and then one other thing that I've been hearing discussed, and I think maybe you did or as a viewer, I can't remember. I've been reading too much about this and consuming too much content, but somebody brought up the idea of adding it at the end of the MPE, adding the retriever.
And that
Um,
was my idea. I mean,
okay.
at least I can't claim 100% credit because I guarantee you I'm not the smartest guy in the game. I'm sure other people came up with that. But what I told CCP when I saw this was, wouldn't it be easier instead of selling this? You can sell all the other stuff if you want to provide them with boosts or you want to give them, the plex and the fit and all that other kind of stuff and the skill packs and that type of stuff in order to get them so that they can fly one of these things. But then make that the reward at the end of the NPE. Like this is, hey, you finished the mining NPE. We're going to give you a really good mining ship for a new player as part of that. I don't think that that has nearly as many problems as the selling it does. There's still the impact potentially on the market because people are going to get it from free, so it may drop the price a little bit. But in the long run, I think it'll be better off if they are giving it away rather than selling it. I think the selling is what crosses the
So
line for a lot of
one
people.
one issue that I have with that idea is people would be able to game the MPE to get procurers by making new accounts.
That is true. I mean,
Um,
that is a legitimate concern that they would run through the NPE
so
multiple times to get that and
what
sell it. You're right.
if what if they had if you completed the MPE and bought this pack, you get a retriever as a reward for completing both the criteria for you bought this like starter mining pack. It took you through the MPE, and because you bought the pack, you got the better ship.
That still smells
That's
too
kind
much
of
like
the
selling the ship to me.
okay.
That
Okay.
if we could,
Just
if
the
they would
first
just,
thought
if
that
they would
came to
give you enough
mind.
flex to buy it, that's one thing.
Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
yeah.
So again, I'm trying to stay on track and time. Are there any YouTube comments to the video that I produced that you feel stick out or that you want to respond to?
So I was looking through some of these and I thought,
Please, when you respond or if you respond to one,
let me
just
find the one I was looking for.
say the name of the poster and then kind of read it out loud and then your response.
All right, so this is one of the ones that I was concerned about. Uh, where did it go? I just had it. So Troy Barton says bringing a new player into the game with a one-off purchase will have far more benefits to the economy of the game and the company than a one-off pack that has a partially fitted, commonly ganked ship with a pittance of skill points. I, he says people are upset over where this could lead, and I can understand that, but this pack doesn't bother me in the slightest. This is the problem with slippery slope arguments. Destroyers and mining barges are where I draw the line. That said, if they really wanted to have a better monetization system, they'd bring back the captain's quarters and sell cosmetics and customizations for your quarters and your character. Hard to get upset over that. And then, of course, you got to eat. So it's the
Trying to
second
find
comment
that
that I saw.
trying to find that comment.
Closer to the top. 21 hours ago, Troll Bart. So
Okay.
Troll, I think his comment is similar to what I heard from a lot of people that, oh well, it's just a barge, or it was just a destroyer. It's not that big a deal, right? So maybe the line is not here. Maybe it's somewhere higher at some other type of ship. And my response to that is, I feel like we didn't fight hard enough when the destroyer packs came out to tell them that it wasn't okay, and this is the result. So I usually am not a big fan of the slippery slope argument. I think that tends to not, in my experience, that's a relatively weak one. But
Like I
in
said,
the
it's got
current in this
backing
current
this time.
But I mean, that's the thing. In this context, we have a credible example of where they started with one thing and now we're on step two. And I don't think anybody wants to get to step 3, 4, 5, and 6. There are some people. Listen, I was on talking in stations last night. Matt Earl and some other folks were out there saying, "Yeah, we have no problems with this. We would love for them to sell Titans to people for money. I don't have no issues with that at all." But I think the players do, and I certainly do, and I think that the folks who are building this stuff would do, and I think that if anything, coming off of a year and a half, 2 years of scarcity, where it's become very hard to build certain types of ships, especially capital ships, the players are going to be really upset and very cynical if suddenly out of the blue the company starts selling them stuff that they can't make for a profit in the game anymore because of the changes that the company made. It makes people feel scummy. It makes them feel like they're being milked like a cash cow, and that's not okay. And I don't want this to cost people. I don't want to lose players to Eve because of this. I don't want to lose new players by not giving them enough support. But at the same time, if a new player thinks that they can come into the game and credit card their way into victory in the game, then they have a fundamental misunderstanding of Eve Online, and they need to have that fixed instantly, or they're going to quit.
Mhm.
Period. This is not a pay to win game by any means. And even with Plex, and even the ability to buy things and send them and send and ISK to your alts, and to purchase skill points and skill injectors, and inject into a big ship, that doesn't teach you how to fly it. It doesn't teach you how to PvP. It doesn't teach you how to PvE. It doesn't teach you how to run abyssals,
Doesn't
and
teach you mechanics. It doesn't teach you anything.
nothing.
So
And
you
at
pay to
the end of the
lose.
day, exactly, you just bought a very expensive kill mail, because that is what happens in Eve. Eve is very much like real life. In real life, a fool and his money are soon parted. And in Eve, the same thing happens. You have a lot of cash in your pocket and you don't know what you're doing with it. You're going to get scammed. You're going to get ripped off. You're going to buy a ship that you can't afford to fly and you don't know how to fly, and you're going to lose it.
And that's why people
And
need to earn their way up, because when you earn your way up,
right.
you feel the gravity of it when you lose it.
And you learn, and you learn,
Mhm.
and you learn how to you learn how to avoid the gankers. You learn how to fit your ships so that you're not the most enticing target. You learn where to go so that you're not in a territory that is filled with people looking to fight you, if that's what
Mhm.
you're trying to avoid, and vice versa. If you're trying to find those people, if you want to go out in PvP and do that kind of thing, you're going to need to learn that, you know what, most of your single solo PvPers, most of the guys like me, they're out in small gangs. When I'm on my Rampage stream or we're doing something fun like that, I'm not flying the most blingy, expensive shit I can find. I want the cheapest thing I can, so if I lose it,
It's
it doesn't hurt.
mhm.
But I want it to
It's
do as much
throwaway.
damage
You
as it
can,
can.
yeah.
Right. So we're flying stabbers and cormorants and thrashers and a lot of stuff that are not the most expensive ships in the game, because they work well and they're throwaway. You can lose them and
Mhm.
it's not a big deal. But
It,
if you charge
it
somebody $25 for that, that's not throwaway anymore.
no, it doesn't feel throwaway. Yeah. Are there any other comments you'd like to add to this, or feel would be value to this discussion?
Uh, I think it's very easy for folks to say, Brisc and the other CSM members, why are you getting so worked up about this? Why is this such a big deal? And to hand wave it away and say, guys, this isn't a big deal. Or why didn't you fight harder on the stuff that happened in the past? Why didn't you fight harder on skill injectors? Or why didn't you fight harder on when they sold the skill packs? Or why didn't you fight harder, 10 years ago or something? And I just want to make clear, it's like, we all want this game to succeed. We want CCP to do well. We want them to make money. And part of the CSM's job is to not only give them good advice on what we think players want, but also to help them and stop them from making big mistakes that will have disastrous or potentially disastrous outcomes in the future. I'm not going to sit here and advocate anybody quit playing the game over this. I'm not going to sit here, I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to quit in the CSM. This is awful. I'm not going to do any of the stuff like that. But I do think that this is significant enough and serious enough that we needed to go public, make a big show of support in the community to the company to let them know that this is not okay, and try to get them to walk this back. And if they don't walk it back, I'll be disappointed, but I would be even more disappointed if we did nothing and 6 months from now they do a cruiser pack.
Mhm.
because that at that point I would have felt like I had an opportunity. We could have tried to nip this in the bud, and we didn't. And that would be me not doing my job as a player representative, and that would be the CSM not doing its job as a feedback group that's designed to give CCP good advice. We would not have given them good advice, and I think it would end up costing more people more money and them more players in the long run. And that's why we did what we did. And hopefully it has a positive outcome. And if it doesn't, we're going to keep fighting. But I just I wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing that we didn't do what everything we could, short of like killing the hostage, which is what I think like telling people to quit playing is, and that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
I don't do that.
I kind of want to put in my wrap up note. I do not believe the line has been crossed, but I believe we are right up on that line. And I believe that if the community is going to pick a point to fight, that it is worth standing and fighting this fight. It's something that we cannot allow to continue in the game, um, and we cannot allow for this to be, proliferated and get worse. Um, I do want to say thank you to one of the commenters. He actually mentioned that he could see both of our points and thinks that we are both on the same side of the fence on this. I can't remember his name. I read the comment. I was trying to dig for it in the comments when you were talking about your comment that you picked, but that inspired me to reach out to you and ask if you would like to show up on my show. And I do also want to say thank you to you for taking the time out of your day to indulge me and let me ask some questions and help paint the picture a little bit better. Um,
I thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate being able to come on. It's good to hang out with one of my favorite streamers. I don't get to hang out with you nearly enough, so that was very pleasant. And I hope that hopefully this will help guide the conversation down the road.
that is the goal. I want people talking about this. I want people discussing it because when the community is in buzz about it, CCP will be forced to listen to what the buzz is. Um, yeah. Uh, yeah. Anyway, shout out, guys. If you like this video or like things like this is the first time I've done an interview with somebody at CSM. First time that we've kind of done this where I react to some kind of post and then we end up having a discussion about it. If you like this, make sure you comment about it below. Make sure you comment on what you think about this whole subject below. And of course, hit the subscribe button and all that fun jazz. And I will see you guys in the next one.